What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 335th episode of the Alfa Insurance Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. Today we're going to talk about the semifinals and this week's state championships. It's going to be 4 days, 16 matchups, the wheelchair game, we got 3-point slam dunk contest. Should be a fun 4 days. This weekend's semifinals, I'm going to cover those starting with 3A. That was the ones I really got to watch closely. But there have been 479 playoff games played in the state through the first 4 rounds. And now it all comes down to this week. The basketball season will be over, so we'll look at who's impressed the most. There's obviously a lot of big names. There were transfers. So we will set the stage, focus solely on basketball today, with the exception of one news story we'll get into, and that is Cedar Grove's head coach stepping down. So that's big news as well. But let's start in Class 3A. So there were some blowouts in the semifinals, and I think 3A had the biggest blowouts, and those were the games I watched. So the first one was the girls. It was Hebron Christian, and they were playing. I'll pull it up real quick. They were playing Monroe. They ended up winning that one 97-42. Now you look at that score, a 55-point victory. But Hebron Christian actually, they're going to advance to the finals with a 49.5 average margin of victory. You heard that right, 49.5. They have demolished every single team in their way this postseason. They're ranked as high as number 11 in the national polls. And I watched the game start to finish, so here is what stood out. One, this Hebron team, they can all knock down shots, and then they used a full court press the entire game. Even when they're up by 50, they kept the starters in. They had a 6-minute fourth quarter, and Coach Jan Azar, obviously, she's pushing her girls. She does not want them to let up for a second. So they were off to a 27-7 lead after the first quarter, a 57-18 lead at the half. They scored 30 points in the second quarter, tons of three-pointers. Junior Maya James, she was the top scorer in that game. She had 5 three-pointers in the first half. And what would happen, Monroe, they were a young team. Their 2 leading scorers were both freshmen, but they could barely get the ball across half court because that press was so relentless. And then Hebron would just force a turnover and then knock down a 3. Cameron Register, she was scoreless until the final minute of the first half. She knocked down back-to-back threes. And then even later on, they just kept hitting shots. Danielle Osho, she's a transfer. I believe she was on that Brookwood team last year that won the 7A state title with her teammate. So she's already experienced. She makes that team even better. She dominated in the third quarter, and she had 10 of her 17 points in that frame. And then Register ended up knocking down 2 three-pointers in the third, so she finished with 12 points. I didn't see her miss a shot the entire game. So they handled that game extremely well. You had Maya Jones 24 points, Osho 17, Register 12, Jakara Butler 12, Aubrey Beckham 12, and Nakaya Daniel 8. I mean, even girls on their bench are starting caliber, so it's going to be very tough to beat them. They're going to face off with Wesleyan. It's a familiar opponent. That's Coach Azar's former school where she won all those state titles. And Wesleyan was a 71-57 winner over Carver Columbus. That was their 11th straight win. And they're led by first-year head coach Ellen Paroli. They used a 21-point fourth quarter to get the edge. And last season, Hebron was able to beat Wesleyan in the semifinals 65-58. So you got to consider Hebron Christian the favorite this time around. They beat Wesleyan last year. They've had transfers coming in, and as I said, they've won by 50 points a game this playoff. So that's what you have to look forward to in 3A. I think it's still going to be a good game, though. All right, so now on the boys' side, defending state champion Sandy Creek. They are a very high-scoring team. You saw them earlier in the playoffs, scored 98 points, but against Carver Columbus, this was a very slow game for them offensively. The score after the first quarter was 9-6, and both teams added late three-pointers. And so Carver Columbus hit a three right at the buzzer, so they're trailing 9-6. They did not make a field goal in the entire second quarter, and then that lead at the half was, let me see, I think it was 25-13. And then Sandy Creek's defense, because Carver couldn't knock down any shots, I think they went 4 minutes into the second half before they added a basket. In total, Carver Columbus hit 5 shots the entire game. They had 1 3-pointer, and then the only other 4 shots they made were off missed shots where someone got the rebound under the basket and was able to put it up. They did not make a single jump shot. Sandy Creek's size was a huge advantage for them. And then the big-time player in that game, pulled up, you had, it was Amari Brown and then Jacoby Robinson, Jared White. I'm trying to think who had these big dunks. One sec. That was Smith. Okay, Micah Smith. Okay, so Sandy Creek's Jared White got the Patriots going in the third quarter with back-to-back baskets. And Amari Brown closed out the third quarter with a corner three at the buzzer. That pushed the lead to 47-23. Smith finished with a game-high 20 points, and he capped a 16-2 fourth-quarter scoring run with a two-handed reverse dunk. I think he had 4 dunks in that game. And then the highlight of that game by far, and this is what you have to look forward to in the championships. So Smith had this two-handed reverse dunk. The crowd went absolutely insane. And then Carver tried to get a quick outlet pass down to the other side of the floor. Smith hustled down and blocked it at the rim. Just completely sealed the game right there. One of the best plays I've seen all season long. And so you got the defending state champs. I think Carver didn't play its best game. As I said, they couldn't hit a single shot. But I really liked the athleticism, and Sandy Creek was able to close it out. And so they're going to play Johnson-Savannah. Johnson-Savannah played at Savannah State, so they had kind of a home crowd advantage. They played Doherty, the team that knocked off Douglas last week, and they were able to handle their athleticism. They won 55-51. Johnson continued its postseason run after drawing a charge with 17 seconds left in the game to outlast the Trojans in a tightly contested game, several lead changes, and it marked their 3rd consecutive win over a ranked opponent. So now they're going to have to do it again against Sandy Creek. It will be a huge task. Sandy Creek's a team that was always looking for that first state title. They had so many great runs. They broke through last season, and then obviously no one's been able to compete with them this year in Class 3A. So 2 interesting matchups, but I do think Sandy Creek's going to be a heavy favorite. So is Hebron Christian on the girls' side. All right, with Class 4A, you're going to have Baldwin going up against Hardaway. This is such an intriguing matchup. Both teams lost to Griffin last year. Baldwin lost to them in the finals. They actually faced them 5 times. think they went 1-4. And then Hardaway lost to Griffin in the semifinals. Well, Hardaway beat Griffin, I think by 30 in this year's quarters, so they avenged that. And then both teams have won 24 straight games. And what's interesting, their last loss was both to Norcross. So neither team has lost within 4A. They both lost to Norcross in November and have won 24 straight since, just absolutely dominating. And then with Baldwin, Janae Walker, she's going to be the force to be reckoned with. She is, I think, a 6'1". She's got a lot of size, and she's been crucial in this Baldwin attack. And a lot of teams are point guard oriented, but she is a great passer. She can draw a double team. She can kick it out to Madison Rupp. She can find the slashers, and she can also handle the ball very well. I think the key for Baldwin, they just need to find some outside shooting. That's why they lost to Norcross. They had the size, but they had a rough day shooting from beyond the arc. And if you look at both of their playoff runs, I would say that Hardaway has played a much tougher last 4 rounds than Baldwin has, but if you look at Baldwin's margin of victory, it's insane. So they won in the first round 84-5 over Southeast Bullock. They are the number 1 ranked team. They beat Trinity Christian 62-42 second round, a great Stockbridge team that hadn't lost in 4A all season, 66-39 in the quarterfinals. And then this weekend, Fayette hadn't lost all season long. They beat them 55-32. So I think they're able to rely on their defense. They are much more experienced, and I think they're just a very highly motivated team. Last year was a heartbreaker. They seem to put that behind them, and head coach Kizzy Walker is very happy with the way they're playing. I think it's going to be a great matchup. And then Hardaway, let's look at their semifinal victory real quick. That was a 57-44 win over North Oconee. In that game, Hardaway led 11-5 after the first, 28-21 at the half. North Oconee's a great team in terms of shooting 3-pointers. They were able to knock down some shots. They cut it to 46-40, but then Hardaway slowed down the game and survived with clutch foul shooting to ice it out. This is what their coach had to say after. North Oconee's great at shooting outside. We had to make sure we closed on their shooters and made sure we didn't rush our shots. So I really think that's going to be the game plan. Hardaway has a lot of size with Michaela Johnson, Akila Shelton, Adaza Burrell, and they're going to have to limit the 3-point shot by Baldwin. Baldwin's so good under the basket. They're so good at rebounding. If they're able to knock down some threes, it's really going to put pressure on them. And the one thing Hardaway has going for them that I don't think you can overlook is they beat Holy Innocents in the playoffs. That was the team that I thought had the best chance to upset Baldwin this year. Hardaway beat them, so it shows they are, in my opinion, the best next team. So then in 4A for boys, this is one of 4 matchups this week that is guaranteed to crown a first-time state champ. 7A girls with Grayson and North Paulding. The 4A boys, you also have Class A Division I, Mount Vernon and Paideia, and then Class 5A girls, Midtown and Jackson, Atlanta. So North Oconee, they've had a historic season, made their first quarterfinals, first semifinals, and now first state title. They won a thriller over Baldwin, 65-64. Baldwin's win before their matchup with North Oconee was over Westminster. That was a team that defeated McDonough, the number 1 ranked team. So Baldwin survived a tough, gritty Westminster team, but then they had to try to compete with just the energy and excitement that's surrounding this year's North Oconee team. Another interesting thing to point out between North Oconee and their opponent, Holy Innocents, they each have only lost 1 game in Class 4A this season, and they both avenged that loss in the region championship. North Oconee lost to Seconder early, and then Holy Innocents lost to Westminster early. They both beat them in the rematch, and so they have a clean slate. All right, so in the Baldwin win, Kamari Brooks, we know him as one of the best football players in Class 4A. He came up with the play of the tournament so far. North Oconee was trailing 64 to 63, trailing by a point. Final possession. They get an open look from the corner. The shot's short. Kamari's under the basket, gets the rebound, knows he has to rush it back up, misses his first put-back attempt, catches it. It's contested, and then he's able to get it in right at the buzzer for a real game winner. It was amazing. Saved the season with that play right there. And their coach, Rick Rasmussen, afterwards said, "We just stayed home and executed." Talking about their game plan against Baldwin. We got some key stops and really good buckets down the stretch and cashed in on that. We got a turnover and a charge on the press as well. And that was Coach Rasmussen describing their 6-0 run to close out the victory, obviously capped by Kamari Brooks, game winner. Leading up to the game, the coach was off-put by media outlets saying his team could not handle the environment against Baldwin, a school in Milledgeville, roughly 90 minutes from Fort Valley, compared to nearly 3 hours from Bogart. But if you know anything about North Oconee, that fan base is rabid. They were so good at home this year, and you knew that they were going to travel, and they're totally going to pack the house in Macon. It says, "We've stuck together and weathered adversity all year long. There's some haters out there. Some people said we wouldn't be able to handle the environment, and we used that as fuel." And Brooks came up massive in that. He also had a bucket to get that 6-0 run going and finished with 28 points. Bird Carter had 8, and he had the game high 18 points in the quarterfinals. All right, so that's North Oconee. They're going to have to go up against Holy Innocents, though. And I think when Holy Innocents beat Pace, that put them as the number 1 team. I know McDonough got them in the region. I'm talking about Pace, but beating Pace Academy in the playoffs, that is a different story. They just seem to be one of those teams that always is in the state finals, and that was just a truly clutch performance by Caleb Wilson. And he's a junior, 6'10". He might be the best player in the state next season. Obviously, we have Ace Bailey this year from McEachern. They were able to beat Benedictine 52-45, and they were up big, I think by 12 points with 2 minutes left. Benedictine kind of clawed back into it, ended up being a 7-point victory. This postseason, it's been Caleb Wilson, Devin Hutcherson, and Will Hopkins. Both Caleb Wilson, Devin Hutcherson, we've seen them go for 24 points, 15 rebounds just in the last couple rounds. And what's interesting about Holy Innocents and how much better they are this season than in previous years, they've only had 16 wins. Caleb Wilson's freshman season, they missed the playoffs that year. I think they were 16-14. Last year they were 16-18, and now they carry a 15-game win streak into the finals, so they can match last year's win total with just this current streak. And they are battle tested. Their only loss is 2 out of state, the Westminster one, and then I believe they lost to Woodward, Wheeler, and McEachern. So battle tested Holy Innocents, North Oconee, 2 teams looking for the first ever state finals or state title. So that'll be a very exciting matchup. Caleb Wilson, and then just the effort and energy that North Oconee's been playing with. All right, so that does it for Class 4A. Let's go. All right, so we've done 3A and 4A. Let's just go ahead and look at 7A real quick. We'll get through this one. All right, so this is going to be McEachern and Grayson. It's a rematch of the season opener. That's how it all started this year, one of the first games anywhere in the state. And Grayson, opened the season number 1, McEachern number 2, and they won that one 79-62. I think McEachern's much better, all these games into it, but Grayson, I think they still are the favorite, and it's because they have such a size advantage. Ace Bailey's a beast, 6'10", but their combination of size and the outside shooting of Jakari makes them, Jakari Harris, a real threat to beat McEachern. So McEachern's one win away from capturing his first state title since 2019. That was the year, I believe, they went on to play in they opted out of playing in the national championship. The Indians defeated defending state champion Wheeler in the semis this past weekend. It was a 63-56 victory. Ace Bailey came up with another dazzling performance. He paced the Indians with 32 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 block shots. We've seen him go for 40 and 22 this season, and throughout the playoffs he's averaging over 30 points and close to 15 rebounds per game. To me, the thing with McEachern that Grayson's going to have to really focus on is McEachern always gets off to fast starts. They establish Ace Bailey early, and then the only time we've seen them slow down is when he gets in foul trouble. He got in foul trouble against Norcross, had to go to the bench with 3, and then he also got in foul trouble this last weekend against Wheeler. McEachern's supporting cast were still able to keep him out front, but you don't want him scoring 20 points in the first half and then going to the bench. You need to limit him as much as possible early on, and like, here's just a perfect example. So in the quarterfinals, 72-57 win over Norcross. They jumped out to a 16-3 lead in the first 6 minutes of the game. And then he went into foul trouble. This is Ace Bailey with 18 points. He didn't come back until 6 minutes left, and then added 15 more, because you can just give it to him. He can knock down threes, get to the foul line, out dribble. He can create his own shot. So you need to make sure that he doesn't get off to the hot start. Then earlier, this was how they opened the playoffs against Westlake. They scored 105 points. There was no foul trouble in that game, and he had 10 points in the first 3 minutes, and then scored 24 of his 32 points in the first half. So really, he scored over 30 points every game this postseason, and he didn't play a full game in the blowout over Westlake, and then he sat with foul trouble the last few rounds. So how many minutes will he play? Obviously, state championship, everything on the line. They're going to want him out there as much as possible. But if he does get into foul trouble, Coach Ankrum is going to have to be smart, because they 100% will need him down the stretch. All right, Grayson. In their, let's see. So they fell to Wheeler last year in the semis, 67-55. They're in search for their first ever state title. And then their latest win was a really strong performance over Milton of 57-40, holding Milton to just 40 points. That is a very eye-opening stat right there. And this is what their coach Jeffrey Pierce said after the game. Thought we played great defensively outside of just a couple miscommunications on their ball screen action. But holding a team like that to 40 points, I'm not going to complain. We'll just work on it at practice this week. So they did a good job in terms of team defense, but it's a much different story when you have to try to slow down a true superstar, the best, highest rated player in the state, number 2 in the country, Ace Bailey. And they did it the first time. All right, offensively, the Rams were well balanced, and the semifinals saw Amir Taylor score 13, Jakari Harris scored 12, Jake Wilkins 11. A note about Jakari Harris to watch in the finals: he can definitely score the ball. He is Grayson's all-time leading scorer. He broke that record in the second round over Carrollton with 16 points, and then he followed it with a game-high and playoff high 23 points in the win over Peachtree Ridge. So for McEachern, they're going to want to limit Jakari Harris as much as possible. He can definitely spark it from deep. I think he had 5 3-pointers in that win over Peachtree Ridge. And then Grayson was also led by Anthony Alston, and then CJ Highland and Taylor. So all those guys, Amir Taylor, all those guys can score double figures easily and can also be the leading scorer. So well-balanced offense for Grayson, Ace Bailey offense for McEachern. That is the matchup right there. On the girls' side, the Grayson Rams, they are undefeated, 31-0, looking for their first state title. Said Hebron Christian was ranked number 11 nationally. Grayson is currently number 6. What makes this year's Grayson team so much better than last year? I think it's the experience. And they added key pieces like Danielle Carnegie, who previously won a state title as a sophomore at Rockdale County. Now she's plugged into this offense, and it has been an unstoppable combination. Georgia Tech commit. Let me see real quick. Yeah, Grayson got 25 points from Danielle Carnegie, the Georgia Tech commit, in the semifinals, and then Florida Atlantic commit Aaron Rodgers had 16 points and 17 rebounds for the double-double. Carnegie, who started her career at Rockdale, has over 2,000 career points. And then defensively, head coach Tim Slater says that's been the key to this flawless record this season. He said, if I told you how many times they get mad and cuss and fuss at each other in practice, it is about defense. That's what he said after their big win over Lowndes this weekend. They were up 29-10 at the half, holding Lowndes to just 3 points in the second quarter. All right, they're going to face North Paulding, and they've already beaten North Paulding this season, but North Paulding was the team that beat them in the playoffs last year. Obviously, Grayson has a lot of new pieces this year, and when they met this season, it was a 75-37 win by Grayson, but that was back on January 9th. North Paulding's been playing much better, and we'll see what type of adjustments they make, but I do think you got to give the edge to Grayson heading into this matchup. And as we mentioned, this is one of the 4 championships that is guaranteed to crown a first ever state title. So that's another interesting aspect of it. Well, let's go ahead. We're going to reset, and we'll come back on the other side to talk about 6A and a huge performance by Kate Harper.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, does it matter if this leaks?
It don't matter to me, can't see it from my house.
Illegal use of hands, improper training.
GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training in our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
All right, welcome back. So let's look at Class 6A on the girls' side. I do think this is one of the most must-see matchups this weekend. That's going to be Marist against North Forsyth. And so Marist comes into this game, into the finals. They're 29-1, and North Forsyth has a perfect, I believe, 31-0 record this season. So they haven't lost. Marist has lost just one game. That was to state finalist Mount Perrin back on December 21st. But that doesn't really matter. What matters is they just beat River Ridge, probably one of the favorites one of the most favored teams heading into the semifinals, and they found a way. I said on Friday I thought that River Ridge might be on upset alert, but I did not think Marist was going to win like this. I thought it'd be a defensive game. They draw up a strategy and be able to slow them down. That's what they've been doing throughout the playoffs. This is the last 10 games by Marist. They held South Cobb to 18 points, Dunwoody to 13, St. Pius to 27, Riverwood to 22, St. Pius again to 22 points, and then in the playoffs, Houston County 22, Lakeside Evans 23, and then Pope 29 in the quarterfinals. And so I thought, oh, this is going to be a defensive game. Instead, Kate Harpring went off for 45 points. So the strategy there is you've got the best starting five perhaps in the state with River Ridge. They won the state title last year. I always mention they have won, I think, 58 straight region games. But one player, a sophomore, Kate Harpring, is able to have an MJ Kobe level performance and just go off like 5-on-1. Just incredible. So she had 6 of her 45 points in overtime, including 3 from the free throw line in the final minute, to lead Marist to a 72-69 victory over defending state champion River Ridge. This was at West Georgia. Now the War Eagles will seek their second championship in 3 seasons when they face second-ranked North Forsyth this Friday. And when Marist won its last state title, that was another clutch performance. They played number 1 ranked Luella. They had a half-court three-pointer to force overtime, and then the same girl that made that was able to get a steal and a fast break layup to steal the victory. So Marist has that magic, but I think Kate Harpring, that's something that Marist did not have before this last round. They've been priding themselves on defense. Now they have someone where North Forsyth, they're going to have to completely change their game plan after seeing that what she's able to do. And then if you draw too much attention to her, Marist is definitely talented enough to distribute the ball, find holes, find openings, and really make it a difficult game. So Marist has a lot more versatility than I thought. They are so much more than just a defensive team. As for North Forsyth, they can get it done defensively as well. They beat Veterans 43-33 in the semifinals. Gabby Gelada scored 5 points, unanswered points, after Veterans had cut a 15-point third quarter deficit to 4 to close out the 10-point victory. North Forsyth, which lost in its previous 2 trips to the semifinals, will make its first appearance in a championship game when it takes on Marist. They're 31-0 and join Grayson girls as the only undefeated teams left in the season. That's what their coach said after the win over Veterans. It was super physical, but we've been in several of those types of games this season. I was just proud that the girls kept their composure. It was one of those where you had to grind it out. It was a great team we played. I'm so proud of those girls. The Raiders appeared to be on their way to a comfortable victory with a layup by Sophia Parks. They gave them a 30-15 lead in the third quarter, but Veterans warmed up from three-point range and fought back in the game. Veterans, who had not made a three-pointer to that point, got 3 in the final 4 minutes of the quarter, 2 from Nariah Nelson, and a layup by Gabby Minus that cut it to 34-30 with 5 minutes left. Giotti answered with 2 layups and a free throw to push the lead back to 39-30. Veterans Minus, she was the Region 1 Player of the Year. She scored inside the opening minute of the second quarter, but the Raiders outscored Veterans 11-4 in the final 7 minutes and grabbed a 26-13 lead. So comfortable victory by North Forsyth, and obviously clutch overtime thriller for Marist over River Ridge. I think it's a very even matchup, but Kate Harpring, she definitely put North Forsyth on notice. They're going to have to really key in on her after that big time 45-point night. All right, on the boys' side, defending state champion Alexander and Riverwood are going to face off. I think this has the potential to be the highest scoring game out of all these finals matchups. Alexander's the defending state champ. They've outclassed everyone this year, and they beat Woodward Academy 93-64. Woodward was coming off a big win over Douglas County, and they were a very tough challenge, but that's a huge victory, 29 points. The top-ranked Cougars will play for their second consecutive title when they meet Riverwood. Alexander's only losses this season were to Holy Innocents early and McEachern. And then in this latest win, Braden Liu had 20 points, Gregory Dunson 19, and it was their 16th straight victory. They ended up having 5 players in double figures. Braden Liu is the Region 5 Player of the Year. As for Riverwood, they have had a really tough stretch in the playoffs. Tons of ranked opponents. They had to beat Lee County in overtime in the first round, team that made it to the finals last year and almost beat Alexander. And now they are just really clicking. They do not look like a team searching for their first state title, let alone playing in the first finals. They beat Jonesboro 79-63, and Jonesboro was coming off a massive win over Hughes in the quarterfinals. In that game, this is what I was talking about with all the big-time scores. That was Leonard had 22 points, Jackson Davis had 12, and then they held off Jonesboro star Cortez Redding's 23 points. Thing to watch out for is the big-time scoring runs both of these teams can do. Obviously, with Alexander and Riverwood, Riverwood used a 13-2 run in the second half, sparked by J.R. Leonard, who had 7 of those 13 points, and that put the game away, 54-38, with 1:03 left in the third. So both these teams can put up 90 points. We've seen Riverwood in the first round. They had a guy score 40, and then his teammate scored 50 the next night. As many people pointed out, you don't see that very often. 2 guys on the same team going for 40-plus points in back-to-back games, but Riverwood, they can share the ball. They have so many different options in terms of scoring. They can push the pace, and everyone knows after this playoff run, they are definitely playing the best basketball we've seen them play all season long. All right, so let's go down to Class 2A real quick. And that's going to be on Thursday. You're going to have 2-time defending state champion Mount Perrin, and then on the boys' side, 2-time defending state champion Westside Augusta. So that's the only classification that has a 2-time defending state champ, and they've got it in both matchups. So Westside, they have crushed the competition this year. They beat Columbia 70-59. Now and that was the 3rd year in a row they defeated Columbia in the state tournament, and for the 3rd year in a row they can win a title. If they beat Toombs County next week, they'll become the first school since Mitchell Baker to win 3 straight Class 2A titles. That was in 98 to 2000. The number 1 ranked Patriots maintained a healthy lead throughout the game, 21-13 after the first, 39-32 at the half, 52-45 after the third. Columbia pulled within 5 with 1:23 left, but Westside closed out with a 6-0 run, going to perfect 6 for 6 at the foul line. Their opponent, Toombs County, let's pull up this matchup. They defeated Butler 47-42. They're going to be in their first ever state title after appearing in the semis for the first time. They are 29-2 at this point and ranked number 4 in the pre-playoff poll by the AJC. In the win over Butler, they were up 30-20 at the half, but Butler cut it to 3 at the end of the third quarter, and then eventually went up a point, 36-35, before Toombs County closed out the game on a 10-6 run. Their coach, Goodwin, said afterwards, Jared Goodwin, he goes, "The third quarter wasn't pretty for us at all. We got into a little bit of a lull, but we still had the lead. We had to continue to try to do what we wanted to do, which is attack the basket and make a couple shots. We had to continue to guard, and our defense carried us in that third quarter when the offense experienced those lulls." So yeah, against a team like Westlake, they're going to have to obviously rely on their defense, but they cannot afford situations like that. On the girls' side, Mount Perrin, 2-time defending state champs, the team that beat Marist earlier this season, battle-tested, and they cruised to a 70-44 win over Murray County to improve to 28-3. And this would be the third state title, third straight under head coach Stephanie Dunn. So she's trying to break into a pretty prestigious category for coaches that have won 3 straight. They never trailed in the game. They were up 54-27 after the third. They were led by junior Jessica Fields. That's Justin Fields' little sister. She had 22 points, and then Sierra Alexander had 21. Jacqueline Myrtle had 19. And Jessica, she played pretty significant role last year as a sophomore, played even less as a freshman, but that is big to see her leading them offensively. Looks like she is definitely coming into her own. And then they're going to play on the girls' side Josie. Josie's back in the championship game for the second time in 4 seasons. They beat Central Macon 45-38 on Saturday. They're the number 2 seed out of Region 4. They're going to play Mount Perrin, as we mentioned. It was the 4th semifinal appearance in the row for Josie, and they had lost in that round the last 2 years. So they're talking about how huge it was to get past it. So Josie started slow in their win over Central Macon. They trailed by 17-11 with 3:21 in the first half, but rallied to tie the game 17-17 at the half. Scored the first 4 points of the third quarter, and then Henderson had 8 points in the quarter, including 2 threes, while the defense held the Chargers to just 6 points. Sophomore Zamaya Jenkins' basket to open the fourth quarter gave the Eagles the first double-digit lead of the game, and that would swell to as much as 41-29 with a minute left. All right, so those are the Class 2A matchups. Let's look at Class A Division 1 real quick. All right, so these are going to be played on Saturday, and this is the only, so Class 2A is the only matchup that has 2-time defending champs. Class A Division 1 are the only 2 matchups that are both region opponents. You're going to have, on the girls' side, St. Francis and Galloway, and then on the boys' side, Mount Vernon and Paideia. Mount Vernon and Paideia are both playing for the first ever state titles, and then St. Francis is the defending state champ, and they have won 4 all-time state titles. Galloway is searching for its first. All right, so on the girls' side, Galloway's back in the championship after a 60-45 win on Friday, setting up a rematch of last year's loss to St. Francis. St. Francis beat Athens Christian in their semifinal victory. Galloway's number 2 seed from Region 6, they went up 20-18 with 6:01 left in the first half and never trailed to close out the game by running down the 35-second shot clock and then hitting clutch 3-pointers late in the shot clock by Tiana Thompson. And then freshman Paloma Diaz-Williamson came up with some big shots late. She had a wide open jumper with 27 seconds left to push the lead to 56-45. Tiana Thompson, the senior, she finished with a game high 28 points. And sophomore Taryn Thompson had 14 points. Diaz Williamson had 9. For the St. Francis girls, that was a 70-38 win over Athens Christian. And they're one win away from back-to-back titles and the 5th in program history. All 4 of their championships have come under their head coach, Aisha Kennedy. The Knights trailed when Athens Academy scored on a layup 2 seconds to the game, but tied it up less than 2 minutes later, never trailed again. They opened the 4th quarter with a 44-31 lead, then went on runs of 13-3 that pushed it to 57-34, and then closed the game out on a 10-0 run to stamp the 32-point victory. Senior Nia Young, 20 points, 6 assists and 3 steals, and her teammate, fellow senior Samaya Watt, 13.7 rebounds and 2 steals. Freshman Gianni Rogers had 11 points, and Desi Taylor had 10. So 5 players in double figures. Coach Kennedy liked the way they played defensively, holding Athens Christian just 38 points. When we can guard and be aggressive out front, we turn people over and get layups and transitions, and that's one of our strengths. We've been talking a lot about playing as a team, sharing the ball, because we do have a lot of good pieces, and today I thought we played really good and up to the best of our ability. Up next, the Knights will play Galloway for the 3rd time this season, looking for a clean sweep after winning both previous matchups. All right, on the boys' side, Paideia and Mount Vernon. I do think it's the same situation with Mount Vernon looking for their sweep after winning both previous matchups. As for Paideia, they beat Savannah 56-39. They've reached the championship for the first time in program history. They led 28-17 at the half, and then held on in the second half when Savannah opened up a 7-0 run, and then were able to cut it to 35-30 before Paideia ran away with the victory. They went on a 17-4 run in the 4th quarter that began with 4:50 left, and it ended with a 53-34 lead with 1:01 left before Savannah was able to get into that margin a bit. Sophomore Kasari Harper had 17 points, freshman Tristan Mitchell 14. And with both these teams, Paideia and Mount Vernon, they probably have the closest to 500 records out of anyone in the finals, and it's because, as we mentioned, that Region 6 had 7 teams in the top 10 this season. It was the deepest, so they've all beaten each other, they've all canceled out, but the records should not fool you. These teams have been tremendous. They have wins over higher classifications as well. And Mount Vernon, they had a 77-39 win over Mount Pisgah, and for the 2nd season in a row, they've advanced to the furthest round in program history. They reached the semis last year for the first time. They never trailed their fellow Region 6 rival, Mount Pisgah, and after taking a 13-2 lead out of the gates, they led by double digits the rest of the game. They were led by senior Shayag Goba, who had 23 points and 8 rebounds. Xavier Shigog had 9 rebounds. KJ Garris 2 steals and 15 points. And then Dennis Scott III, the son of 3D, had 10 points. Sophomore Gabe Alterman had 7 assists. Their head coach Tarek Mabin was asked about the program reaching its first championship. He said, "It's amazing. I'm a man of faith and we're a program of faith. We know none of this is a mistake and we give all the glory to God. That being said, the young men in our program over the last 3 to 4 years have worked so hard to get to this place, and the guys who started the program with me 7 years ago, this falls on their shoulders. What we're doing now is humility over ego. Everything we do it the right way. We're just focused on being the best version of ourselves." I think this is a big opportunity for Mount Vernon. It's really hard to win state titles in these lower classification private schools. There's so many throughout Atlanta. It's very competitive, and the moves they're making with football, hiring Terrence Edwards, and then basketball. If they start winning state titles, you're going to see them really start to build something special over there. All right, so let's look at Class A Division II, and this is going to be played on Wednesday, and it's going to start with Green Forest Christian girls against Montgomery County, and then the Green Forest Christian boys against Manchester. The Green Forest girls are looking for the first state title. Green Forest boys have previously won 4, and then the Manchester boys, they won their only state title in 2007, and then the Montgomery County girls, they've won 3 state titles before, but not since 1961, 71, and 72. So in terms of the title droughts, Montgomery County has the longest one. Second place is Baldwin on the girls' side. Their last title came in 1988, but Montgomery County's last one was 1972. All right, so in the semifinals, they beat Quinch County. This is Montgomery County. They beat Quinch 61-57. It was a 51-point combined performance by seniors Marley Bell and Amari Banks out of their 61 points. And Bell, a 5'9" senior, she entered the matchup with the team leading 25 points per game, and she netted her season, or she topped her season average. She had 29 points in that victory. So Marley Bell had 29, and that would mean Amari Banks had 22 in that game. All right, the Green Forest Christian girls, they beat Taylor County 65-34. In this recap, it says, in basketball, height matters. And for Green Forest to outclass Taylor County in all facets of the game to advance to the state championship. Green Forest has been ranked to top the class all season long. They were bigger, faster, and took advantage of that throughout. The top-ranked Eagles' shortest starter was head and shoulders above Taylor County's tallest. They led 18-4 after the first, 37-17 at the half, and 54-25 entering the fourth. Lena Korakonic led Green Forest with 18 points, and senior center Eric Angu, a Central Florida commit, had 8. All right, let's look at the boys real quick. The Green Forest Christian boys, they defeated Macon County 68-44. Macon County did go on a scoring run, a 12-0-1 that cut it to 4 points, but from there, head coach Roy Griffin said his team did not fret. He knew they had been there before against teams like Milton and Berkmore. Griffin, with the state championship berth on the line, told his players he loved them. They've won state titles as recently as 2022 and are aiming for number 5. And then the Manchester boys, they defeated Warren County. I think Warren County was a state runner-up last season. That was 62-60. It says it's oddly fitting that Manchester's 2 leading scorers made the game-winning block to send the Blue Devils and first-year head coach DeMonte Prather to the Division II state title. And it's more picturesque when realized that the last time Prather suited up in a high school uniform, this is their first-year head coach, he played for Manchester, a small railroad town in the west central part. And so I believe he is at his alma mater, and he lost in the championship game in I guess they don't say what, the 2012. That was when they're trying to win their first since 2007. Anyway, Jaden Terry had 24 points, and Darius Bryant had 14. So those matchups that will kick things off this week on Wednesday. Green Forest has a chance to sweep, and they will play Montgomery County on the girls, Manchester for the boys. So in addition to Green Forest, you have Grayson has an opportunity to sweep, And then in terms of the most state titles won by any finalist, that's going to be Wesleyan. They have won 13 all-time state titles. Teams that are looking for their first. You've got the Green Forest girls, Hardaway girls, North Oconee boys, Holy Innocents boys, Toombs County boys, Midtown girls, Jackson Atlanta girls, then North Forsyth girls, Riverwood boys, Galloway girls, Paideia boys, Mount Vernon boys, Grayson girls, North Paulding girls, and Grayson boys. So a lot of first-time championships on the line. All right, let's close this out with some football news real quick. I've got the John Adams update. I think this broke today. It says John Adams, who led Cedar Grove 2 state titles in his 3 seasons as football coach, is leaving the DeKalb County School. Adams announced his resignation Sunday evening. He's expecting to join a college staff. I am more grateful for having had the opportunity to work with a program that is leaving a mark on football in the state of Georgia, Adams said in a post on Twitter. To the players, coaching staff, and parents, thank you for trusting and allowing me to serve all these 3 years. It's been nothing short of greatness. So we won 2, almost won 3. We know what happened in that other one. Adams' 3-season record at Cedar Grove was 33-11, with many of those losses against larger schools. Adams' 2022 team almost won. It was a state runner-up to Sandy Creek in the controversial ending. Cedar Grove is expected to be a strong contender this fall. In 2023, quarterback E.J. Colson was the Class 3A Offensive Player of the Year. Bo Walker, their running back who's coming to Georgia, he's coming back next season. E.J. would have come back, but he reclassified and is now at UCF. And then wide receiver, Devin Carter is a national recruit. Adams had been Cedar Grove's defensive back coach since 2016 when he was promoted to head coach. He's been on staff for all 5 Cedar Grove titles. He also previously coached at Miller Grove, North Atlanta, and then Northwest Rankin in Mississippi. He's a Southwest DeKalb grad who played football under Buck Godfrey, DeKalb County's all-time winningest coach. Played baseball for 2 years at South Carolina and finished up his degree at Jackson State. So it's a big loss for Cedar Grove. We'll see who comes in. He obviously was a program guy when he got promoted. Came in, did a phenomenal job, but that is a big opening, and we'll also see where he ends up at the college level. But that's it for now. You guys can go to scoreatl.com. We'll have these finals previews posted up there. We're going to have coverage throughout the 4 days, check in for the spring rankings, and much more. Thank you guys. We'll see you then.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.